to the movie and I go downtown.
Peace, everyone. Welcome to the last Food Literacy for All class of 2023. Glad you're able to join us in this final session. And this is our class synthesis. So we have no guest speakers. Lily and I are with you today to have a quick dialogue and just take a temperature check of where you are in your thinking and understanding of the course themes, and of course to share some highlights from the course. And I wanted to give a quick note. Our co-leader, Jessica, is handling a family emergency, and so she will not be with us tonight. So as usual, as we start off the class, we talk about the co-leads, the triad of us, myself, Dr. Jessica Walker, and Lily, whom you all know well at this point. And of course, more team members that make this happen are GSIs, Megan and Niexi, and Kimmy Van Wedge, who is the SFSI coordinator, and Chris Taylor, our wonderful tech person. And of course, we want to give thanks to the generous support of our sponsors, whom we list every session. So we're going to skip going into detail. So let's get to the fun things. Our first poll today: what was your favorite part of the class? The guest speakers, the readings, the word clouds, the in-person sessions, the jams, the community engagement, the phrase veggie backing, or a cameo from Moyo, my son, who's made an appearance various times, quite disruptively, I'm sure, according to many of you. So tell us, what has been your favorite part of the class? And while we wait for our responses, please complete the 3-minute survey link, or please click on the link in the chat to complete the 3-minute survey to give us some feedback. We definitely appreciate all the transparent and honest feedback so that we can strengthen the course in future years. All right, looks like guest speakers take the bag. Okay, and that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for participating in this poll. I think the guest speakers has been one of my favorite parts of the course as well. Okay, so moving on. So there's a 3-minute survey link in the chat that we appreciate your participation, and also the University of Michigan Office of Registrar has the traditional class evaluation that all of you who are enrolled as students in the course should have received via email, and we encourage you to complete that as well. So as many of you know, the GO organization, the Graduate Workers Organization here on campus, is still on strike. And we wanted to uplift the importance of the strike and give some examples of labor history in the food system, because this is directly connected to the content that we share around food sovereignty, climate justice, food justice, overall equity and sustainability. And so I'm sure many of you may be familiar with the book, The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. It's a classic that talks about the meat packer strikes in 1985, who helped create safer conditions for workers and safer products for consumers. It's one of the classical texts of historical food systems literature that really talks about why food system striking is important and why we must support these strikes as consumers or even producers or other actors in the food system. So check it out if you're inclined to do that. And another example, and actually one of my favorites, is the farm worker strike in Cesar Chavez and Dorcita Huerta actually led in the 1960s. And they facilitated the strike to better facilitate or to bring about better living and working conditions, plus consumer awareness of who produces food and how it's produced. And so this strike particularly won huge wins for farm workers in certain parts of the country who produce or who actually, yes, produce and harvest a lot of the food that is consumed on a national level. And so we appreciate everyone's reflections on how the examples of labor history in the food system is related to the GEO strike and why we are choosing to move in a certain way as co-leads of this course to support our graduate students on a campus-wide level who are on strike. And so if there are still questions about why is GEO striking, what do our GSIs actually do, and how long will the strike last, all of that information has been shared via Canvas, and we can also share links if that's helpful. So let us know if that is what you need. And thank you, Lily, for putting in the chat a note about final grades. And due to the strike, final grades will be delayed. And here's an explanation that you can read in your own time and let us know if you have any questions about that. So due to the strike, there are some course adjustments. Regarding final grades, you will receive final grades, but they will be delayed. Not having grades due to the strike will not negatively affect your GPA or your transcript. If grades have not been received, your transcript will remain blank or quoted in R for no record. And you can still walk in graduation for those that are currently graduating, and congratulations to our graduates, of course. Regarding the capstone projects, full credit will be given if it meets the formatting and course content guidelines. And that means essentially your team will be given full credit for the completion of the project, and comments will be provided but will be delayed. So we ask for your grace and patience as we work through all of the unexpected changes of this course. A few more announcements regarding course communications. The first step is the capstone FAQs are listed in the Canvas website, and that addresses all of the guidelines around teammates and teamwork that are on the syllabus. And if you have any other questions, you could message Dr. Walker via Canvas, and that's really important to do it via Canvas. And please give up to 48 hours for a response. All quizzes are still postponed until further notice, and points are subtracted from the course total. And regarding participation and attendance, again, we are collecting participation and attendance, but grading will be delayed. So there are some exciting courses around food systems that will be unrolling over the next semester or unrolling during the fall semester. Some undergraduate courses that are listed here look really exciting: food, energy, and environmental justice, globalization and its discontents, struggle for food, water, and energy, foundations of sustainable food systems, which is a classic I hear, food and drink in the Middle East. That looks really interesting. And then some graduate courses, principles for transition, complex systems and ecology, diverse farming systems. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Transformative Food Systems webinar. So this all looks really exciting, and I hope that many of you choose to sign up to take these courses. And I just wanted to give a quick call for a last call for the food systems internship funding that is due May 1st. And I believe more information can be provided via a link in the chat, and more information, of course, can be provided via a search on the Sustainable Food Systems Initiative website. So now I'm going to pass it to Lily to do a recap of the semester.
Great. Thank you so much, Shakira. Hey, everybody. Good to see you all. Or I don't really see you. Good to be here with you virtually. We're going to go through this recap of the semester. And what I tried to do here is to pull out like the key themes from each of our speakers, just to reflect on where we have been and bring us back to think holistically about this entire course and the themes that we have covered. So I typically do not read from slides, but I find that these particular quotes so powerful that in some of these cases, I am actually going to read from the slides. So remember at the beginning of the semester, we actually started off with a screening of the ants and the grasshopper. And we heard specifically from Anita and Esther, who are some of the main women featured in the documentary. And they talked a lot about climate change and farming. And they said, when you are in the front line, you have no choice but to fight. And we then heard speakers later in the semester echo what it means to be on the front line. So we'll circle back to that. I also thought this quote was very powerful about, while the rich are debating what to do, the poor have to endure. Change, it starts with denial. When you debate something, you talk more about it. It's not in vain. These are remembering about that film. And then the next week we had filmmaker and speaker Raj Patel. He's also an author and activist. And he talked a lot about this idea about individual action versus more systemic collective action. And he said that often in America, we're told to do things that only we're told that the only thing you can do is to shop organic or eat vegan or ride a bicycle. These are all right individual actions. He said, yeah, these are cool things to do, but you have to be a part of a movement to make change. We have to practice our ability to carry together, which of course is all about even the title of the film, The Ants and the Grasshopper, right? About lots of ants can lift the grasshopper together. America and capitalism train us to be individualist and break down our capacity to understand ourselves as part of a bigger movement. But Raj says you can't rebel by yourself. This is something we do collectively, and that's what the ants and the grasshopper is all about. Okay, then the following week, we heard from Fozia Ismail, who really talked about food from different angles. She brought in a cultural component, and she had these, she had these supper clubs, and she says, food is like a living friend that sustains you as an individual in times of hardship, not this distant thing. It is a companion to us all. And I think it just shows that there's so many powerful ways to think about food and culture and food globally around the world. But then she also connected the dots for us, connecting food insecurity and climate change, talking about in Somalia, where her family is from, half the country is food insecure due to climate change. It's been pretty devastating to nomadic life. And I remember she talked about her aunt in particular. Then the following week, we heard from two speakers from the Queer Food Foundation, Vanessa Parrish and Sunny Levine. And they shared that it's well documented that queer folks are more likely to face issues with mental health, housing access, community acceptance, financial stability, career access, and all of those factors and pressures are creating an environment that is increasing the risk of food insecurity as a cultural comorbidity. And I think that one theme throughout the semester is that so many of our speakers connected the dots. We're not just talking about food, but like these speakers who are talking about food and housing and financial stability and queerness. And whereas Raj Patel is also weaving in capitalism and feminism and the patriarchy. And so I think that the theme of this class throughout is that we're looking at food in these systems levels analysis. Then we heard from Nayaz Dori, who connected the dots between the land food system and the seafood system. She says the problems that we're facing on land are being mirrored on the water. The solutions that we have come up with are also mirrored on the water. The sea has everything to do with food access, food justice, and our ability to have an equitable food system. And then Ashley Gripper, she goes by Dr. Grip. Ashley Gripper she talked about her work in Philadelphia and with urban agriculture in Philly. She talked about food apartheid and also food sovereignty. She talked specifically, she said, Philly growers have said time and time again that gardens are a solution to food apartheid. They're a solution to extraction, to the health inequities that our people face. And one important thing that came up multiple times in this class is that food apartheid is different than food deserts. Food deserts are naturally occurring landscapes that can be rich with life and food. But food apartheid, on the other hand, highlights the structural factors and the actors that have contributed to an intentionally inequitable food system for Black folks and other minoritized groups. Then we had Aaliyah Fraser talking about food sovereignty and chocolate. And she also spoke about agroecology, which agroecology she described as both a practice, a way of farming. It's also a movement, and it's also a science. And she said, to me, food sovereignty and agroecology go hand in hand. Agroecology is so much more than a set of principles and practices. It's also a way of life that is ingrained in our DNA. And then specifically when she was talking about her family's chocolate business, she said, we're all about scaling out instead of scaling up. Scaling up feels very individual and personal, and scaling out feels like we're working with everybody. And it means creating more players in the field instead of being the dominating player, which is really a radical different framing than the way that most businesses operate, certainly in this country and perhaps around the world. And then we finally got to see you all in person. Maybe you can spot yourself in this picture. It was so good to come together in March for Fast Food for Thought, and we got to hear 10 tiny talks, or I think we heard 9 tiny talks. They were all 5 minutes each. And you can do like a little, I sent this picture to my family to do a Where's Waldo of finding my husband in the crowd, which my brother said he confessed that he can't believe he spent so much of his life scanning this crowd, but he did indeed find him. So it was good to see you all in person. These are some pictures. Of course, we had Nano Diapo, the drumming and dance group, to kick us off, which was an incredible performance. Here's some more action pictures of their group. And then we all got to actually share a meal together. And it was just really nice to see you all. All right, then we were back to the virtual world, and we welcomed Benicia Albert. And she kind of brought back this idea that we talked about in the first class, of this idea of frontline. And she defined what she meant by that. She said, when I say frontline organizations and communities, I mean those who live along the fence line of oil, gas, extraction, or processing facilities. I also mean frontline when we talk about those who are dealing with physical health or land-based destruction in the immediate sense. So I think in that case, Anita and Esther from Malawi from the film would definitely qualify in Benicia's definition of frontline. And she says, what happens when a community who has lived in a space for millennia has to move because their village is falling into the ocean? The climate crisis is not a long, far-off thing to be dealt with in the future or to be dealt with in any calmness. And then we had a conversation with Liz Carlisle and Latrice Tatsi. And Latrice said, science is not always linear. Science can be circular. They want to take the people out of science, but when you do that, you are taking an important ecological piece out, because we are part of nature and we have evolved with nature. She also says that the conditions that we live in today are because of the decisions that generations before us have made. And her framing is that we are all in positions to make decisions that will benefit future generations. And I do think that is such a helpful framing when we think about the climate crisis, if we were able to think more farther down the line and think more about our lives and our decisions impacting future generations. All right, and then on April 4th, just recently, we got to see you all in person again, and we got to welcome Kiki and Idrik and hear their really incredible, insightful narrative about the rise, fall, and future of Detroit's restaurant industry. And there were so many good quotes from this one. This is one from Idrik, who said, "Is there a difference between equity and equality? Yes." And then she showed, and she explained that equality is everybody being treated equally, but equity is that different people may need different resources so that the opportunities are equal. And Kiki also shared so many meaningful insights, but one that I'll just remind you of is that she says that fancy toast is not passé, and do not let anyone tell you that it is, that fancy toast is excellent. All right, and then just last week, we had Reverend Dr. Diane Glave join us and talk about how landscapes are racialized, and she talks about how there's a disconnect between being in the environment and feeling safe or unsafe, and that if for somebody they see a hanging tree in the woods, and what that means is somebody that if lynching is connected to that tree, that it's very hard to make a connection with nature. And she really wove together a lot of different narratives that were very powerful and connected to the climate crisis and race and the environment. All right, so that's my speed tour recap of where we have been. And Shakira, I will pass it to you for a little bit more discussion about catalyzing change.
Thanks, Lily. And I have Moyo, just like old times. I got Moyo with me, who woke up from his nap. So I want to start off our discussion on catalyzing change with a quick inquiry of how folks may conceptualize change. So please put in the chat. It could be a word, it could be a statement, it can be a series of words or statements. And it's no pressure. I'm just curious, where are you in your understanding of change? Transition, collective, okay, keep it going. Thank you to the brave souls that got it started. Gather, care, collaboration, teamwork, community building, change is inevitable, dismantle, regenerate, speak up, adaptive. Yes, I agree. All of these things represent change, either as a very explicit definition or as a related theory or practice, right? Progress. Yes, thank you. So when we talk about change, usually our response or our intuition is to talk about, well, what can we do about it on an individual level? And if you remember the literature that we read at the beginning of the course, for example, Kyle White's article on epistemologies of crisis, sometimes, well, all the time, change is highly, how we conceptualize change is highly racialized. It's highly impacted by many other factors of our identity. And for people of color and for poor people and people generally speaking that are most impacted by climate change and food inequities, we've been going through various changes and injustices for a very long time. And this is important to note because this is how we talk about how do we dismantle white supremacy narratives and in relation to food systems, which we started off with the course together, right? And so the idea around, okay, the time is now, the urgency now that we have seen the massive amounts of flooding or the massive droughts or even other kinds of indicators of climate change that are now affecting everybody, like not discriminating across race, class, and other identity markers. Now more people are becoming more aware, right? But for centuries, Black, Indigenous people of color, rural poor people, I mean, just many sectors of communities that have been invisibilized have been experiencing crises or inequities and injustices, oppression, to be very explicit, for a very long time prior to the dominant system wanting to acknowledge that they existed. And so this is really important to understand in terms of how we conceptualize what is urgent or what is worthy of change and what is worthy of transformation or transition. And so now that we've talked about a little bit about change, I wanted to go into a quick reflection. But before we do that, I wanted to also illuminate how change is sometimes articulated to be individualistic. And so we often think about, well, what can we do on an individual level to help Somalian communities, for example, resist climate injustices? And I believe the speaker for that week talked a lot about she used climate genocide as the descriptor for how she's interpreting this problem and what her generational communities are going through, right, back in her home villages. And so if hundreds of thousands of children are dying a year due to famine and drought and other climate induced realities, then what can we do about it, right? And is this a systemic issue, or is it an individual issue that we can address just by donating money or by learning more about the problem? And so I just want to take us along on this journey of discerning between the impact of this individual change that you may make in your lifestyle or your beliefs or your habits or your actions, and then the systemic orientation around change and what that looks like. And so keep that in mind as we go into our reflection. 3 minutes, I want everyone to reflect on how do you catalyze change, whether it's on a systemic level or an individual level, not to dismiss the importance of the individual actions, but also consider that these are systemic problems that necessitate systemic solutions. And so how do you catalyze change in various respects? So we're gonna see, we're gonna take 3 minutes. We're gonna take 3 minutes. Please write down your thoughts and then we'll come back together.
Old pirates, yes, they rabbi, sold I to.
All right, please slowly or quickly come back with us. You would like, and really interested if folks want to share in the chat. Where are you with your understandings of how do we catalyze change as individuals, as organizations, as collectives, as communities, as people that are accountable to one another, as humanity? I saw some initially, yes, being involved in the movement and seeding the space for the experts to drive the process. Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. And let's keep in mind, who are the experts? So who do we mean, or what do we mean by experts? Because that will be a significant determination of this particular strategy. Usually experts within our white supremacist, racially capitalist, heteropatriarchal society are those maybe who identify as white people, or those that may identify as cisgendered men in particular, or heterosexual men, and even those that have a lot of credentials like academic certifications and other kinds of merits and degrees, while those that have a significant amount of lived experience are not deemed experts, right? And so let's just think about what experts driving the process means. Okay, so moving on to some others. Getting people to talk about issues, discussing issues can bring more attention to them. And even if people deny that these issues exist or are important, change starts with denial. Yes, as stated in The Ants and the Grasshopper, but yes, which I love. It's dead on, thank you. Having hard conversations, for sure. Starting with communities and leveraging local engagement and cooperation to make change in the broader context. Working alongside the community and listening to the perspectives and experiences of others. Yes, thank you. And I want to illuminate listening. What does listening mean? Like deep, active listening, and not just listening to defend what you already may believe or what you may already think is the solution. So sometimes listening means humbling yourself to completely throw away all that you thought was correct or what you knew to be correct, and trying on something completely different. It may be a completely different cultural cosmology or a new way of seeing the world, right? Educating others, donating, teaching, getting involved locally and spreading education peacefully without politics. Preaching the message. Yes, yes, yes. All of these sound really wonderful. recognizing everyone comes from different backgrounds and viewpoints and respectfully listening to others, for sure. Yes. And so I'll end by illuminating this point of education. So again, what do we mean? What do we mean by education? A lot of these terms have like highly variable definitions and highly variable points of entrance and departure. And education within a certain frame is a tool of oppression, or has been used as a tool of the oppressors. And so are we talking about education as a way to draw out what is already inside of people that is more of a liberating approach? There's several examples: Paulo Freire, critical pedagogy, Black feminist pedagogy, many indigenous peoples on a global level pedagogy talks about education as an inside out process, and starting with culture and identity as a way to meet people where they are and to ground it in people's lived experiences and values, as opposed to education like we're just filling people up with this knowledge because we think that it's important, right? Like people are empty vessels that need to be told what to do and how to do it, which is actually the dominant method of education in academia and other sectors, in my experience. And so I just want us to be really clear about how we're understanding these terms as it relates to how we catalyze change. So I want to thank everyone for indulging us and sharing in the chat so vulnerably and so thoughtfully. So now we're going to go to the next poll, or the last poll. As a result of this class, which one of these approaches have you tried? Again, on this vibration of change. Have you told friends and or family about a class resource? Have you changed your food purchasing habits? Have you volunteered or donated resources to organizations? Have you followed up research or explored content from organizations we have discussed? Have you organized people to build collectives or groups to tackle problems? Have you supported several policy advocacies on either a local, state, or federal level, or none of these? And if none of these align with what you have tried thus far, please feel free to put in the chat if there is something else. So just a few more seconds.
I
Okay.
love to see that over 100 of you have told friends or family about a class resource. That's really heartening to see. It looks like another 88 of you have followed up with research or explored various content from organizations we have discussed. That's really cool to see. Wow, over almost half of you have changed your food purchasing habits in some way. About a quarter of you are supporting policy advocacy. Very cool. And obviously you can type in the chat as well. We know we didn't cover everything.
Yeah, there are so many things that we all can do. And these are just this is just a very, very limited list. So thank you all. And I'm hoping that the reflections that were generated in terms of catalyzing change can actually turn into tangible action plans so that we can really be accountable and committed to the world that we all need, that is clearly in contrast, deep contrast to the world that we currently have. So the lingering question is, what are you doing? Not what are you thinking, not what are you reading or writing about, which is important too, but what are you actually doing very practically and tangibly? So please carry that with you. So there's a food literacy playlist that Lily put together from all of the songs that the guest speakers have chosen for their intros, and that link is in the chat. And
I was looking, Shakira, at the themes, and there is so much so, we just asked people what they wanted for their song, and so many people had a song that involved Beyonce, and more than one had a song that involved Stevie Wonder. So I feel like those were the topics of the class.
Yeah, those and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, they're heavy hitters, and it's really interesting that it spans across, differing generations. I love that.
Yeah, totally. I'm just gonna, as we're wrapping up class here, I'm just one more time putting a link in the chat to that 3-minute survey link. Just reminding you that there's 2 surveys. There's the one the registrar always sends out, but then this survey is for community attendees, it's for students. It really only takes a few minutes, but it really did, based on feedback from a survey last year, that's why we made this class this year, some virtual, some in person. We really want to hear from you, and we will actually look at the results and make changes in the future based on that. All right, and lastly, sorry, Shakara. Okay, we have our final, we want to know what stuck with you from the semester. So you can click the Menti link in the chat, or you can scan it with your phone, either way. But we want to hear from you. Big picture, what stuck with you? Food sovereignty, food apartheid, equity. All right, there we go, veggie backing. Considering ocean food, Black agrarianism, urban agriculture, climate change, apartheid. Poseidon. Wow, this is awesome. I see a lot of different variations of sovereignty. Queer food. Carbon colonization. Fun, racism. Those were 2 different things. Empowerment, climate justice, chocolate. All right, well, we really want to thank you all for being with us this semester, sharing your Tuesday evenings with us. And it's been a learning journey for everybody. So thank you for bringing to this class everything you all did. And Shakira, do you want to add anything as closing words?
No, just deep gratitude to everyone. I think these are really important spaces to sustain the revolution, as we say. So thank you.
That's a good closing word, sustain the revolution. All right. DJ Sita, you can hit it, and thank you again to everybody.
Oh, yes,